Okay. So tell us your name and where you came from.
I'm Emily Harris, and I actually live in Greenbrier, which is about 12 miles from where the Pegasus pipeline rupture occurred. And I'm a board member from the Faulkner County Citizens Advisory Group that came into being in 2009 in response to the incredible influx of earthquakes in our area based on the Fayetteville shale fracking wastewater injection, deep injection of flowback fluid surmounting the permit limitations resulting in seismic activity in a seismically sensitive area. I think earthquakes, that was going to be part of what I talked about too. Earthquakes obviously are going to have an effect on anything in the ground, including pipelines, and we haven't heard any talk at all about earthquake ramifications. But I began my time at the microphone. So the whole format of the meeting is that there's a panel with 5 or 6 presenters, and then the floor is open for questions from the floor. So when it was my turn, actually I attempted to comment and ask my question after the first panel and didn't get to. So for the second panel, I was the second one up to the microphone. The gentleman in front of me read a letter and contributed the letter speaking about planning commissioners' concerns related to what had happened in Mayflower. So there was a lot of people that went to the microphone that called the name of Mayflower. As far as I can tell, there's only 3 of us here from the area. There's an attorney, one of the
And when you say the area, Mayflower
Faulkner County is what I count as my community, the county level. So there's an attorney, and then there's the individual from the Pulaski County Planning Board that talked about how land use planners are not included in pipeline decisions and how important that would be not to have built a subdivision on top of a pipeline if anybody had actually been doing their job as planners or awareness. But I opened my time at the microphone with an expression of gratitude for the meeting organizers to hold this event and to have it open to the public so that they could share their messages of community safety. And I made the point that communication is a two-way street. Not only do they have to be concerned with putting their messages out, they also need to be concerned with accepting input from the community. I began to talk about our all-volunteer organization and how we all have other lives and how this has been incredibly resource-intensive, and that there has been independent air quality and water column testing that show community health levels of concern that have not been addressed through any of the activities around the Pegasus pipeline rupture. At that point, she became a little irate and told me that I needed to just stop right there, that I was not allowed to go forward because they had already heard enough about Mayflower. She didn't want to hear any more. This wasn't about Mayflower, that it needed to be more about the public safety in general.
So you asked a question.
Well, I asked to ask my question. I said, well, can I please still ask my question? Because my question is that we've already facilitated 2 town hall meetings and are planning the 3rd to mark the 90-day anniversary. We've been stonewalled by Exxon. They've not attended any of our meetings. They've not answered any of our questions. Our state regulatory agencies tell us that it's inappropriate for them to participate in a community meeting based on the ongoing nature of the investigation. Well, who's holding the investigation? I mean, PHMSA is intricately involved in the investigation. So how do they recommend that we access that communication pathway with those pipeline officials and policymakers to address community concerns when we're being told, the community, that it's inappropriate for those policymakers and pipeline regulators, and the Exxon Corporation to be involved because there's an ongoing investigation? I mean, how do I do that?
And so basically you asked your question, your concern, or she didn't allow you to ask your question at all, cut you off.
I was told no, I was not allowed to ask my question. That they just were not going to hear any more of that. And so I think that it's quite appropriate that, as you know, I began my time at the microphone with an expression of gratitude for the meeting and an explanation that communication is a two-way street, that I was told, no, you're not allowed to share your concerns, you're not allowed to share your experience. We've heard enough, we don't want to hear any more about that. But then yet a number of other individuals who do not live in the area and had some inaccurate statements were still allowed to speak out. So I suppose the fact that I had come forth with hard scientific data to present made them feel as though I needed to be shut down immediately. I didn't have wild, exaggerated claims. I had claims of hard scientific data, and they did not want to hear that.
Perhaps they felt threatened by that.
Perhaps. I did take the opportunity to go and thank her personally for her effort to support my cause, because I personally believe her telling me to shut up did way more for the point I'm trying to make than my question ever would have.
Well, thank you for asking those questions, or well, at least trying to ask your questions.
Absolutely, and I look forward to tomorrow. You know, there were a lot of red flags raised today from a number of people. You know, the land use planner, the excavator, both of them surveyed the audience to see, is there anyone else here that does excavation? Is there anyone else here that does land use planning? I got big fat zeros. The fire chief spoke about the fact that they do not have the resources or the time, energy, or incentive to protect the environment. That's not what they do. They protect life and personal property. That's up to the pipeline operator to have those materials on hand, and the environmental contractors. And that's really a whole nother story in itself, is the fact that they are using outdated technology, outdated methodology, and they're being paid based on the number of the trips to the landfill. It doesn't make sense for them to use effective current technology, because then it would cut their hours of pay. It's all about money making and not at all about protecting the community or the environment. And that's really got to change. You know, they're still using cleanup processes from what, 1960? I'm sorry, but come forward, come forward. We've made a little progress since then, and they need to implement that in their cleanup response. And as of yet, they haven't. They're still using floating boom for sinking dilbit. It doesn't work. It's never going to work.